Shields up, Ironbreakers. We're kind of here coming at you with another video. Welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys my thoughts on the Stormblood expansion. Very much like I did for A Realm Reborn and Heavensward, this video is going to be completely spoiler-free. I would like to thank Square Enix for providing me with both the game as well as the game time, which allowed me to actually play through the expansion so that I can bring my opinions to you guys. Now, some of you might be wondering, why am I talking about Stormblood in 2020? And that is because I really only started getting into Final Fantasy XIV in 2019. I had played it previously. I'd gotten up to like level 35 or something along those lines. But 2019 was when I actually started getting into it. And one of the things that I said to myself is like, look, if I'm going to play this game, I'm not going to skip any of the expansions because, you know, 2019 was when Shadowbringers came out. So I'm not going to skip any of the expansions. I want to actually experience the entirety of the story and see if it's worth playing or not so that I can give you guys my thoughts on it. And I don't regret that one bit because the stories so far have been tremendously interesting. It's just like one big long story from the beginning of A Realm Reborn, where pretty much anything that happens in A Realm Reborn has consequences that are felt throughout Stormblood, and I assume even through Shadowbringers, which I haven't really began Shadowbringers yet. I can't wait to get started because everybody says that that's like the best expansion and just one of the best Final Fantasy games ever made, so I'm really excited to get started with that. But naturally, before we do that, we have to take a look back and see what Stormblood was all about. Now, it is important to mention that my particular experience with Stormblood was interrupted midway. So I played Stormblood, and I think I completed like Ruby C, and after Ruby C I had to take a bit of a break because you guys know Iceborne came out and whatnot, and I had to do a lot of content for Iceborne. But as things started winding down, I recently picked it back up, and I went back to Stormblood, and I continued playing it to kind of like formulate my opinion on this whole thing. And I don't think that the interruption was that big of a deal, because ultimately what happened is, as you guys know, I did the video on Heavensward, and my impressions on Heavensward were extremely positive. I loved the Dragon Song arc. I loved everything about it. That expansion has been the only game that ever made me care about an elven character, which is something completely unheard of for me, to be completely honest. But I greatly enjoyed it. And coming off of all of that hype and jumping into Stormblood was literally like hitting a brick wall. I was very disappointed with the beginning of the Stormblood expansion. It starts off extremely slow. It's almost like Heavensward took 10 steps forward after A Realm Reborn, right? In terms of like just bringing the better content, the better story, the better everything. And then Stormblood takes those 10 steps back again, and maybe even one more at the beginning. Bear in mind, I'm not talking about the entirety of the expansion. I'm talking about the very beginning of Stormblood. It was incredibly slow. It was areas that were like divided down the middle that you didn't have access to the second portion of the area, which would prevent you from gathering all the aether currents so that you could actually fly. There was a bunch of that. One of the areas in particular, the Ruby C, I did not care for that area at all. Like, I really, really hate that area. I did not like the underwater stuff. I did not like just a lot of the events that took place in there. The coolest thing that I did in the Ruby Sea was that dungeon where you get to block a massive sword, and that's all I'll talk about because I don't want to go into spoiler territory or anything. That was like the coolest thing that we did in that particular area, just like straight up, because I was the tank, and the fact that I got to just like block that massive friggin' sword to prevent it from hitting the raid was really, really cool. Naturally, the dungeons, in my opinion, are still fantastic. The Final Fantasy XIV team continues to basically wow me with their dungeons that they do, the trials, the mechanics involved and all that stuff. Even though it is confusing, but it is fairly accessible because it's not current content anymore. So it's super easy for you to kind of get through it. And in a lot of ways, that's actually one of my main complaints. Most of the stuff is like mega easy to get through. But you can see that the mechanics that were in place when this content was relevant would be extremely interesting to capitalize upon. So it had a pretty rough start, and that rough start was also something that very much put me off of Stormblood from the get-go. And then it's got this thing where Stormblood, as people have even told me in chat, because I've been receiving a lot of guidance from my Twitch chat without having them spoil anything. Like, I've had very few things spoiled for me for 14. The community around this game is friggin' phenomenal. I have only good things to say about them. So they pretty much like tell me, okay, so this thing is about this thing in it. And it was really good to have that resource, because sometimes I would forget a character because I have a goldfish brain. It would remind me, oh, this character happened in this thing, and I was like, okay, I'd be able to connect the dots to really get the storyline together. So the beginning is fairly rough, and as my chat told me, Stormblood is kind of like two stories in one. So there's the story of Doma and the liberation of Doma from the Empire, and then there's the story of the Alamegan resistance and how that whole thing comes together, which is why the expansion feels kind of like disconnected at certain points. At least for me, it felt that way. But basically, as you get into the story and you eventually get to this area called the XIV Steppes, and a big event takes place in this area. After that big event, which I will not talk about, but it was a really, really cool quest. I actually failed that quest twice, I think, because of the fact that there were specific mechanics in there that you could not mess up, and I was very happy about that, mind you. Whenever I'd find a quest that's, no, this one is a little bit harder, I'd be like, hey, yes, cool. I want to be forced to actually do mechanics as opposed to just like roll my face through everything. It was very satisfying to do that quest, and it was also a really good quest all around. But after that particular event over in the XIV Steppes, I felt like Stormblood really started picking up and really started ramping up the quality of the quests, the quality of the, just like the story, everything just started ramping up, and it became a lot better. So very quickly, in terms of the main scenario quests, I would say, like, I don't know how long it is until you get to the XIV Steppes. I would say like the first 30 to 40% of the game did not feel extremely good. It felt like a lot of busy work. It felt like a lot of the stuff that you were doing, it just didn't, especially coming off of Heavensward and the quality of the story that you had on there, it doesn't feel nearly as good. But after you get past that hump, that what a lot of people probably even call the Stormblood hump, after you get past that, then the story started getting a lot better, and it started getting a lot more interesting, and you start getting these new areas and these new things that you can actually do, and you actually are able to begin collecting your Aether Currents so that you can fly in certain places and whatnot. At that point, I started getting much more invested. And once you get to the castle quest line, which again, I have to keep these things rather vague, but once you get to the castle quest line, you get to do the castle dungeon, then things really start looking up, and it's just a lot more fun, and you start seeing the characters that you've been interacting with like all come into place. Then when you get to the Alamegan resistance, and you start seeing characters from Heavensward show up as well to kind of help you now that you're fighting against the Empire and all of this stuff, it starts paying off near the end, and you start getting the same vibe and feel that you got with Heavensward, which is really, really good. Now, as you all know, by the time you get to the end of the MSQ, or the main scenario quests, there is like 5 patches or so with additional storylines, which then lead you into the next expansion. As my chat was telling me that essentially the Stormblood ends around the end of the 4.3 quest, which is where I am right now, which means that pretty much 4.4 is kind of like the beginning into Shadowbringers, and that is going to be the next main story quest that I will do. Now, very much like I did for Heavensward and Realm Reborn, I wanted to do all of the raids and all of the dungeons that I possibly could of this expansion before giving you guys my opinion. And I'll tell you guys right now, the 8-man raid series of this expansion is friggin' sweet. I'm not going to tell you guys the name of the raids themselves, but I can tell you like the names that they put for the instances, which is the Deltascape, the Sigmascape, and that should give people that have played a pretty good idea what I'm talking about. Those raids to me were friggin' phenomenal, and here's the interesting bit. I'm not someone who's played that much Final Fantasy, and I know that a lot of those raids, because people have told me, are very much references to previous Final Fantasies and stuff like that. But I still greatly enjoyed those fights. I think those fights were friggin' phenomenal, and they were a lot of fun, and just the whole storyline around that particular arc is something that I greatly enjoyed, and it really kind of like pushed Stormblood back into the positive for me, because the beginning of it was just really not that great in my opinion. The post-main story quests as well, the post-storm, the after-credit quests that you get leading into Shadowbringers. Those were also really good, particularly the arc where the character Asahi shows up. That was like the first reveal of like that character's true intentions. I thought was brilliantly done, and I was like, oh my god, what the hell? That was really freaking cool. I greatly enjoyed it. So far, at the point that I'm at right now, Stormblood is actually looking pretty good. Right up until the point where I started working on the 24-man raids. Good God, I did not care for that at all. And I haven't even been able to finish them, by the way. Like, full disclosure, I'm sorry. I'm trying. I'm actively trying. Like, I'm not even kidding, guys, right now. I am on queue right now. And I've been queued up for the third raid of the third alliance raid of Stormblood for 256 minutes. And it's still 0 out of 6 healers, okay? So, it's like, I don't think that one's happening, but to be quite frank, the raids themselves are pretty fun. The quests in between the raids, I thought were completely horrible. I understand that there's a lot of references there to people that like Final Fantasy Tactics and people that like Final Fantasy XII, but I just thought the whole setup of those quests was just like not fun. It's adequate that they call the room that you go into right as you are doing those quests, they call it the tiring room. And it's very adequate because every time I go in there, I feel like I'm tired. I feel like I'm about to fall asleep every single time. Not to mention that in between 2 of the raids, there's one of the most egregious fetch quest lines in the friggin' game. Like, you're talking pre-Titan levels on Realm Reborn, which was really, really bad. And as I did that quest line, I even stopped reading. I was like, look, dude, I can't. There's nothing about this quest line that I personally care about. It is just terrible. I had to stop reading because I was losing my mind over the fact that it was just like a character telling me, hey, can you get me some wine? And then you go and you're like, yeah, sure. You go to get the wine and then another character tells you, oh, this wine, it's very rare. You have to go talk to this other guy. And then you talk to the other guy. The guy says, oh, this wine. Oh, yeah, you got to go talk to this other guy. And then you talk to the other guy and the guy tells you, oh, yeah, I can trade you this wine for this other wine. And you go back to another wine connoisseur and the wine connoisseur goes, oh, yeah, this particular wine. Oh, yeah, you have to go talk to this. And I was like, dude, I thought we were done with this kind of stuff. This is insane. In one of the main quests that you have to do for a raid, this is crazy. Like, I was very disappointed with the 24-man raids. And again, I understand that some people will probably really enjoy it because you might be Final Fantasy Tactics fans or Final Fantasy XII fans or whatever the case may be, and you might have really enjoyed that story arc. I hated it. I thought the exposition in that story arc was completely and utterly insane, and they're just like, oh yeah, let's talk about this thing and not this thing and not that thing and now let's get really technical about this other thing. And I mentally checked out of that. I was like, dude, I can't. This is way too much. There's way too much exposition in this, and then I would get to the raid and I would not even get most of the references to the bosses or anything like that, which is why I felt the 8-man raids were a lot better. I also did a lot of the post-MSQ dungeons, which were really good. I did the 4 Lords quest, and that one I actually greatly enjoyed. I thought that one was really cool, and I particularly enjoyed the boss fights in that quest as well. I thought they were very creative with a lot of the mechanics that you had to work with. So yeah, the 4 Lords quest I actually greatly enjoyed. So some people might say, oh, you didn't like the 24-man because of the lack of voice acting. It's like, could voice acting have made it better? It probably could have, but it's not really the biggest thing because the 4 Lords quest also did not have voice acting, and I enjoyed that one a lot more than the 24-man. So that's pretty much where I am with Stormblood. If people were to ask me to rate, for instance, like which one of the story arcs was my favorite between Realm Reborn, Heavensward, and Stormblood, Heavensward at this point is clearly number 1. Remember, I still haven't played Shadowbringers. Heavensward is number 1, Realm Reborn would be number 2, and Stormblood would be number 3. Despite all of the payoff at the end and stuff, it's still, there's a lot in Stormblood that I was not a big fan of. There's also the Rathalos raid, which was introduced during Stormblood, as you guys probably know, because I posted a video of me doing Rathalos in Final Fantasy XIV. The Rathalos raid was freaking phenomenal. It's potentially one of my favorite things in Final Fantasy XIV because it is a fight that actually makes sense as someone that has played Monster Hunter World, as someone that has experience in Monster Hunter World. That experience actually translates into when you are doing that fight because you can usually tell what Rathalos telegraphs are, because you kind of know, okay, oh, he's in this position, I know this is going to be a tail swipe, and you can move away. Whereas probably Final Fantasy XIV only players might not have recognized some of the moves that Rathalos does. I think it's actually easier for people that have done Monster Hunter World to do this event than people that have never engaged with it, and maybe they're even like Omega best raiders in the world. But when it comes to Rathalos, maybe they'll be like, holy crap, what the hell is this? Because there's no aggro, there's no like traditional MMO mechanics, and I thought it was a really cool encounter. So overall, it was still a lot of fun. I would still advise people not to skip, personally. Again, if you want to skip, that's fine. If you want to go straight to Shadowbringers, which everyone is saying is the best thing ever, if that's what you want to do, go for it. If you have friends and you want to hang out with them, sure. But I still think you miss out on a lot of stuff. And I've been watching a couple of videos online about, you know, where they talk about the story of the previous expansions, because, you know, you stay far away enough and you start to forget some of the little details. And I noticed that even in a lot of those videos, you know, there's just a lot of stuff that you don't get because you didn't experience the story, and there's a lot of little nuanced details that you're going to miss out on, which those are usually big payoffs at certain story moments in Final Fantasy XIV, and the Final Fantasy XIV story just continues to be friggin' amazing. Despite the slow start of Stormblood, I can't wait to see what Shadowbringers is going to be like. I'm still going to be exclusively streaming this on Twitch. I was thinking if I was going to stream it on YouTube or not, but I think that since I streamed most of it on Twitch, it would be kind of unfair to the people that are following me there and have been checking out the whole thing on Twitch. So everything that I stream of 14 is going to remain on Twitch, and then I'll do like opinion videos like this one here on the channel, or highlighting specific things that I really enjoyed and whatnot, so long as they don't spoil stuff, because I really don't want to do spoiler stuff for people. But yeah, overall, I still stand by my no skipping policy, and we're heading into Shadowbringers next. If you guys want to check that out, feel free to show up on Twitch. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to apologize, because I've been uploading my Twitch live streams of like the previous expansions and whatnot onto my other YouTube channel. But apparently YouTube and Twitch are no longer on speaking terms. I can't link my Twitch and YouTube account anymore, and that prevents me from uploading videos directly from Twitch to YouTube. And doing that whole process manually is not something that I'm going to do, because it's too much. I have too much on my plate already, and I'm not going to be spending, I don't know, like 10 hours, however much it's going to take to move files over from Twitch to upload to YouTube. If they did like a direct link like we used to have, I would do that, but they don't do that anymore, so sorry. If they eventually fix that, I'll upload it, but as you guys know, videos on Twitch last about 2 months or whatever, and then they get deleted. So it is what it is. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you guys did not enjoy this video, hit the dislike button. Feedback is important. Feedback that you can leave me also in the comment section of this video. Thank you all very much for watching. Stay strong, and may your shields never break.